Hey guys, Adam Lobo here from Adam Lobo TV. So year after year, every time when I test any of the Sony Xperia series, whether or not it's the 10, 5 or this one series, I've always had that comfortable feeling of using the phone daily. Now if you're familiar with my channel, my daily Android smartphone is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2 because other Android phones does not excite me that much because of that unique foldable form factor. So because of that, I would test the phone for about a week when I review a smartphone and then I immediately switch back to that foldable smartphone. But this Sony Xperia 1 Mark III though, I've been using the phone for about 2 weeks now and I don't feel like I'm eager to move away from the phone. Why, you might ask? Well, let me explain. Oh, and don't worry, except for right now, I will never mention the word enthusiast.
Enthusiast found
in this review video at all, so keep watching. And first, allow me to go through the unboxing process with y'all. Now the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III comes with a usual white colored box with the Xperia 1 Mark III in the middle and the Sony logo down below. Then at the back you'll find some of the specs over there, including the IP65/68 rating. Opening the box, you'll immediately find the phone itself. Then there's the startup guide. Underneath there's the USB-C to USB-C cable and the 30-watt charging brick. Now as for the phone specs, it comes with a Snapdragon 888 chipset with the Adreno 660 GPU, and the variant that I have is the massive 12GB of RAM with 256GB of storage. Then when it comes to the software, it comes with the Xperia UI skin on top of Android 11. Now the first obvious change is that this Mark III variant now has a frosted matte glass finish, and of course we all can agree about how it is better than a typically glossy glass back. Now besides being a fingerprint magnet, the durability of this phone does play a huge role when it comes to a phone that has that previous glossy glass finish. Then the sides are also in a matte finish which is made of aluminium. And what's interesting is that prior to using this phone, I was actually testing out the brand new Z Fold 3, which has the same matte finish and almost the same longer form factor. So switching from that to this was a seamless transition. Now the camera bump was about a medium size, so it will wobble a bit if you tap the phone on a surface, especially towards the middle right. Then the screen has a Corning Gorilla Glass Victus protection, which is the hardest glass from Corning, which is a huge upgrade from last year's Gorilla Glass 6. Next, look at the ports and buttons. You'll only find the USB-C port below, as the speakers are up-firing speakers at the bottom and also at the top of the screen near the earpiece area. On the right, you'll find more buttons than a typical smartphone, where other than the volume rocker and the side fingerprint sensor power button, there are two additional unique buttons, where one is a dedicated Google Assistant button, which I find it extremely useful since most of my smart home devices here in the studio is actually using the Google Home ecosystem, so I can just press this very quickly and perform quick commands. Then the other button is where by default, if it's pressed, it will trigger the camera app and also works as a shutter button to make it easier to take photos on a landscape orientation since the phone has a longer form factor. Then on the left, unique to the Sony Xperia series, there is the dual SIM card and the micro SD card slot, which can support up to 1TB of storage. And yes, you can easily take this out by using your fingernail instead of using a SIM injector pin. Then finally on top, there's the old and familiar headphones jack, making the phone very functional in every area. And while we are at with the whole functional buttons and ports that Sony has for the phone, one bonus thing that I would just wish is for Sony to have that alert slider that OnePlus has, and that would make it extra perfect, right? So when it comes to the overall build quality and the overall design, I had absolutely no issues when I was using the phone daily for typing. Heck, I even typed this whole video script on the phone instead of typically using my laptop. And of course, when it comes to making phone calls or any other typical daily smartphone tasks, was pretty much a breeze as well. Next, let's talk about the display. Now the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III comes with a 6.5-inch OLED HDR display with a high resolution of 1644 by 3840 pixels. So yes, it is the similar 4K display following the footsteps of the previous Mark II as usual. But where there was a huge improvement is the 120Hz refresh rate, where you can toggle it in the display settings, but you can only toggle between that or 60Hz. So here's where I would wish that it would give another adjustment to 90Hz instead, but it doesn't. And speaking of options, there's also no way of changing the screen resolution to a lower resolution, but honestly to me, I really don't want to because of its really gorgeous 4K screen. Because guys, this screen is hands down the best smartphone display that I've ever reviewed this year so far. So unless other smartphone makers plan to give us a 4K screen, I don't think they would come close. Now, not only the screen was super pleasant to use daily, but watching videos on the phone was truly amazing, especially when you switch to the creator mode under the image quality settings, which gives you a BT 2020 color gamut instead of the standard Rec 709 and the 10-bit color depth with HDR specifications. With that, you'll get the best 21:9 aspect ratio Netflix and YouTube viewing experience, as this creator mode also adjusts according to how the video was color graded and made. As I also did my own comparison when watching my own videos with the creative mode turned on and off, and I know that the color was way more accurate when the creator mode was turned on. And speaking of the viewing experience, since there's no camera hole punch, it does make the experience even better when it comes to consuming video content. So yes, if you are not a huge fan of those vivid colors typically found on screens that you see on Samsung or Oppo smartphones, then you will love this creator mode. But of course, if you prefer a vivid screen, then you can always switch to the standard mode, which will give you that option. And like the previous generation, you can dial in and adjust the white balance if you want to as well. Now my slight complaint is during this creator mode is the fact that there were times that the adaptive brightness was slightly adjusted to a bit more brighter for my liking during a dark environment. But I guess that's better than having an extremely underperforming screen. So with this guys, I personally think that there's no other smartphones that can come close to what the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III has to offer for their screen, and that, my friends, is a really huge plus. Now as for the cameras, the phone has a quite nice set of Zeiss optic lenses with the Zeiss lens coating as well. Firstly, the main lens is a 12 megapixel f1.7 aperture 24mm wide lens, a 12 megapixel f2.2 16mm ultra wide angle lens, a TOF 3D depth sensor, and finally the unique 12 megapixel f2.3 with a variable optical zoom that can change the focal length between a 70mm telephoto lens to even a higher focal length of 105mm, where this focal length value is represented in the Pro menu in the camera app or as times 2.9 or times 4.4 at the basic camera app. Then as for the front camera, it has an 8 megapixel f2.0 aperture lens. So with all of this cool camera technology, how does the camera really perform then? Well, firstly, these shots were all taken with the camera app's basic mode, and looking at the ultra wide angle lenses first. I really love the image quality and the dynamic range over here, and I feel that 16mm is the perfect focal length for ultra wide angle lenses in a smartphone. Then as for the main lenses, as predicted, the colors and the dynamic range was once again really amazing, without oversaturating the images, which will eventually give you more flexibility in post. From taking photos with the sky present or taking photos of objects were flawless, as you guys can see. Then as for the telephoto lens or the zoom lens options, while the 2.9 times zoom images or the 70mm focal length shots look nice, but I did find that the pictures for the 4x4 times zoom, also known as the 105mm shots, were not as sharp as the main lens, but still very usable indeed. Then the rear portrait mode camera was also great with a flagship level subject to background blur, with great age detection as well. Now, like the previous Mark II, there is no dedicated night mode on the phone, but the camera software will adapt to the scene accordingly. But the overall shots look really good when it comes to low light situations, as seen in these images. Then when it comes to the regular selfie, the sharpness and the details were really nice as well, without getting the background to overexpose as seen at the sky area. Then the portrait selfie shots were just okay, as I did see it struggle on the age detection sometimes. So let's hope for a software update that is able to fix that. Then as for video, like the camera photo app, there's the Pro Video app too, which can give you some nice pro-like features similar to the Sony Alpha cameras, like having a Venice look, which is usually available on the Pro cameras on the Sony lineup. And in there, you can even adjust the frame rates to even up to 4K 120 frames per second as well. However, for the regular video camera app, you can record up to 4K 30 frames per second for the rear, but still only at 1080p for the front camera. Not sure why until now there's no 4K video recording, where both the video quality for the rear and the front camera still turned out really nice, especially for the front camera, although it was at 1080p, as you guys can clearly see. So as mentioned, that the speakers are front-facing speakers, and since it had a wider aspect ratio, so you'll get a nicer and a wider stereo sound stage with amazing speaker quality. The dynamic vibration is still here, where in case you guys did not know, it vibrates according to the beat of the music, or even when it comes to watching movies. The speaker also has Dolby Atmos support with further settings in there, and you also see the DSEE Ultimate to upscale your compressed music. And of course, this will work hand in hand with Sony's WH and the WF headphones and earbud series. Now, in terms of the overall quality of this sound, it was pretty loud at 90.1 dB with no distortion at its maximum volume. And guys, words cannot explain how amazing the speakers were, and I really hope that this music over here could give you enough justification on that. So here is a quick sound test. Alright guys, hope you guys are enjoying this video so far. If you are, please give this video a nice big thumbs up, and also give a quick comment on what you guys think of the phone thus far. That would be nice to help me stick out from this weird YouTube algorithm. Okay guys, I am a very simple man. When it comes to software on any Android skin or even on iOS devices, I just need two simple things to make me happy. Want to know what it is? Here it is. Now all I need is that if I swipe down on any part of the screen, the notification menu comes down. That's number one. And for number two, if I happen to swipe up at any part of the screen, there is the apps drawer. That's it. Simple, right? And yet only very few smartphones out right now does that, as to me that is already a great experience when using any smartphones with just a single hand, no matter how big the screen is. And yes, this Xperia UI is the closest to what you can get to a stock Android experience, with the similar added features like before, such as the side sense to quickly access some of the apps within the shortcut menu. And then there's also the one-handed mode and the multi-window switch, which I did not feel that I use it as much, but it is nice that is there. Also, worth mentioning is the fact that although that this may be an old school feature, but I really do appreciate the notification LED on the phone as well. Now, unlike most phones that I've tested that has the Snapdragon 888 chipset, the phone doesn't overheat unnecessarily. And I also like to say that the auto rotate feature seems to be way much faster compared to when MKBHD reviewed the phone when he mentioned in this video, so that is great to know. Alright, now on to the phone's battery. It comes with a 4500 mAh of battery, which is 500 mAh more than last year. However, here's where I felt that this was the phone's Achilles heel, because compared to last year's 5.5 hours of screen on time when I was at 10% battery, due to the higher 120Hz refresh rate in this current phone's display, it did take a huge toll on the battery life, as I got an average of 3 hours and 35 minutes of screen on time when I was at 10% battery with dark mode turned on. So if you really want to save battery, you'll need to kinda change it back to the 60Hz refresh rate. And here's where once again I wish there's an option of a 90Hz refresh rate, so we don't have a drastic drop on the refresh rate, since there's no way of changing the screen resolution anyway. However, to combat this issue, what's sweet is there is the 30-watt fast charging support, which could go from 0 to 50% about 26 minutes. And it also has fast wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. And I also believe that with software options like battery care, does give you better options to save your battery's lifespan with features like giving a charging limit and many other cool features, which I wish that all smartphones had these features. Now when it comes to gaming on the smartphone, it kind of reminded me of the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3, where it was really nice and wide in the hands. Now playing games like Asphalt 9 was amazing because of its front-facing speakers, where the game ran really well. And what's interesting is that there is a toggle to turn on the 120 frames per second in the settings over there that made the game run really smooth. Then there's also the game enhancer mode, including the competition mode similar to ROG's eSports mode, where it will disable the navigation bar and the notifications while playing. Then as for PUBG Mobile, it also ran great at graphics set to Ultra HD and frame rate set to Ultra. Then the gameplay was indeed very satisfying because of its wider form factor of the phone as mentioned earlier. There was a little battery drain but not as heavy as how it was on Genshin Impact. And yes, speaking of Genshin Impact, the gameplay was once again really crisp and nice. The screen quality really showed here in this game. But as mentioned earlier, the battery drain was quite heavy and it became really hot to the touch during a really long gameplay with medium settings at 60 frames per second with motion blur turned off. Alright, in conclusion, what do I think of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III and do I recommend it to you all? Well, while many would say that, oh, you can get a better smartphone for this kind of price, you will really need to ask yourself this. Why is that better and in which area that is better? Because price aside, with all the best things to have in a smartphone, besides the battery life, I don't see any other reason why you should not get the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. And I personally feel that Sony has tweaked lots of the lower quirks or complaints that the previous Mark II had, that eventually produce a more complete of a smartphone. And yes, if you guys are planning to get yourself one, I will leave links at the description below, as the phone is going for 5,799 ringgit for this exact 12GB of RAM with 256GB of storage. So guys, with this, would you consider getting the phone or you rather look elsewhere? Do let me know at the comment section below. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and help you in making your purchase decision. My name is Adam Lobo and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bella ciao.